Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Today, me and Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling are hosting the Creator's Choice Spring and Summer collaboration. We're joined by a few of our very talented friends, and I'm going to link Dawn's channel as well as the playlist in the description box. I'm going to be trying a new medium, paper pulp, papier-mâché. I've been wanting to try it, and I'm finally getting around to it. Let's get into it. I'm going to upcycle some packing material here. I have here some packing foam. I'll also be using this 10-inch cardboard cake round. We'll also be using some paper towels. I've separated them so that they're down to 1 ply, and I've cut them into small rectangles. We'll be using these to cover our foam to give the papier-mâché something to grab onto. And I'm just going to use some regular old Mod Podge to attach the paper towels to the foam. This project was originally intended to be made during the My Coffee House collaboration. So what I have here is a template for a coffee cup and a saucer. And we're going to use these to make a wall planner. So I just laid my templates on top of my phone, traced them out, and cut out the shapes. And I really only needed a semicircle for the saucer. I also cut out a wee handle for the cup. We're going to attach this to the cardboard circle. We're going to leave a wee gap here to create a pocket. This way we can add florals or any other little doodad we might want to. So the first thing that I'm going to do is cover the circle with the paper towel. So I'm going to separate the plies here, just peeling them apart. I'll apply a layer of Mod Podge to 1/2 of the cardboard, then I will lay my paper towel on top of it, add a top coat of Mod Podge, then I'll repeat that on the opposite side so that the whole round is covered. Now I'm going to add a top coat of the Mod Podge to the paper towel. And now we'll do the other side. I'm going to cut away some of this excess paper towel off the side, and then I'm going to come around the edge and do some relief snips. I flipped the cardboard round over. I'm adding some Mod Podge to the back, and I'm going to flip up the little relief tabs that we cut and paste them down with the Mod Podge. This is going to give us a nice neat finish around the edge. And once we're done here, we're going to set it aside until it's well dry. Right, so I've grabbed my foam cup shape and I'm looking to see where I want this to sit on the cardboard round. Once I figure that out, I'm going to use my 3-in-1 glue to attach the foam to the cardboard. I'm also going to use a little hot glue, for that quick grab. And I want to make sure that I'm leaving that little pocket shape there so that we'll be able to put florals in there. And I'm going to hold this for a few minutes, make sure that the glue is well set. And now that the cup is set, we're going to add the saucer. Same way, little 3-in-1 glue, little hot glue, and hold it in place. And of course the same for the wee handle. Okay, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. There's a nice gap there that we can add some florals, whatever other doodads we may want to. And now we're going to cover this with paper towel. So once again, I'm just going to apply a layer of the Mod Podge, and then I'll add a piece of paper towel over top, conforming it to the shape of the cup. And once I get it on there, I'll add another top coat of Mod Podge. Again, just like we did with the round. Yeah, so for the most part, this went relatively quickly, all things considered. I think the most important part was making sure that the entire foam surface was covered with the paper towels. See, I wasn't really sure whether or not the papier-mâché was going to stick just to that slick foam. There was no texture to that foam. It was very smooth. So the paper toweling does give it a little bit of texture, something to stick to. I also made sure to cover the foam on the inside of the cup as well. Really more for that extra support and reinforcement. And I cut down my paper toweling a wee bit smaller to negotiate the handle. And I just continued until everything was covered and had a top coat of Mod Podge. Then I actually let it dry overnight. Okay, so now we're going to mix up some of the papier-mâché pulp. This is Activa. It's like a pre-mixed, pre-made papier-mâché. You just need to add water. I'm going to use this little food processor to help me break up some of the clumps in the dry clay. And then after we run it through dry, we'll add some water and run it through again. Now I'm going to add some water. It's supposed to be 3-to-1. 1 portion of water to every 3 scoops. But I'm just eyeballing it. We'll see how this works out. Of course, if it's too wet, I can always add more paper pulp. And if it's too dry, a little more water. I'm just going to mix it around a little bit with my palette knife. Make sure that all the dry bits are incorporated. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. It looks pretty smooth, so I am going to move it into this plastic bowl here, and I'm going to mix up a wee bit more because I don't think this is going to be enough to cover our entire surface. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is fill the inside down into that little pocket. We'll get that filled in first. I'm going to use my palette knife and try to smooth it nice and thin in there because I'm not really sure how long it's going to take for this to dry. So I don't want it to be too thick. I'd like it to dry relatively quickly. So now that I get the inside filled in, I'm going to add some clay to the top here with my palette knife. And I'll try to smooth it as best as I can. I do want a little bit of texture. I'm really not sure how smooth you can get this. From what I've read, you can add gesso and that'll smooth it out, or drywall spackle, that's supposed to smooth it out too. But for this particular situation here, I want a little bit of texture. With my palette knife, I'm going to smooth on a thin layer across the top of our coffee cup here. From the looks of it, it doesn't really look like I'm going to be able to get it as smooth as I would air dry clay, but that's cool. I'm good with that. So I'm just going to go along and fill in the entire coffee cup and saucer first, and then once that's done, I'll fill in the backer. Right, so now we're on to filling in that background. I'm doing my best to try to keep it as even of a coat as possible, and I'm going to use this paintbrush here just to kind of tap it in and smooth it into some areas, especially like along the edge of the cup. It's easier to get in there with the paintbrush. And of course along the edges too. I think that using the paintbrush is a little easier than using the palette knife. And once I get everything coated, hopefully it'll be all dry within 24 hours, but you know, we'll see, right? Yeah, so it actually did take 2 nights to dry. It was like a full 24 hours. But it is completely dry now. There's a lot of texture. Of course, it can be sanded if you want it smoother. I, however, like it like this. I like the grittiness to it. I want it to look like it belongs outside. I think this is perfect as is. So we're just going to get on to the detailing now. So you know, lately I've been into the whole vintage green. So I'm going to paint the backing piece with Americana Sea Glass. I love this color green, and I'm using it left, right, and center this year so far. I think it's perfect for spring and into summer. And we'll see if this needs more than one coat. I think one coat's probably going to do it. I want to make sure that I get sea glass into that little hole in the handle there. Just using a round brush and kind of forcing it in there. The cup and saucer is going to get a coat of Americana bleached sand. Again, this is another one of my go-to colors lately, let's say. And it's not that much darker than the actual paper pulp. It's got a nice vintage feel to it, kind of like a vanilla feel. I wanted to add a little something something to the background, so I pulled out my checkerboard stencil here, and I'm going to pounce on Mint Julep, which is really just a shade lighter than the background color of the sea glass. So it's going to be super subtle. That's what I'm looking for. I just want it to be barely visible. I don't know, I kind of like that look. You might want to go with something that's a little more obvious. Totally up to you if you were going to do this. But, you know, I like to play around and just see what's what. Okay, there you go. I think you can kind of see it is super subtle. But yeah, I really like that. So now I'm going to go around, fill in around the sides and along the bottom there. Now I want to add a stripe across the mug here. So as you can see, I just formed a wee stripe with the painter's tape, and I'm using the mint julep again to go right across and fill in that stripe. The mint julep is also an Americana color. They have a lot of these really pretty vintagey green colors. So whenever I'm out and about, if I see them, I grab them. Okay, let's peel up that tape to reveal our stripe. It actually turned out pretty good. I wasn't going to worry too much, you know, if it wasn't perfect. because of the rough surface to this, but it actually turned out a lot better than I thought. Right on. I'm going to take that cosmetic sponge that I used to apply the paint on the stripe, and I'm just going to tap it along this saucer there, the edge of the saucer. Add a little of that green there. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay, so then I came in and I did a little bit of dry brushing on the bleached sand part with oyster beige, but that's way too subtle. So I'm going to come back in with Americana Cocoa and deepen it. Yeah, so I'm just going to dry brush around the edges, and I'm going to go around the circumference of the backer as well with this. I think this cocoa really highlights the texture and, adds kind of that worn, vintagey look. More like it's been out in the weather, getting a little grungy. Yeah, the cocoa is much better. I think it really highlights the texture and adds that worn, vintagey, weathered look. Yeah, and like I said, I want to hit the edges here around the perimeter. Dust that up a wee bit with the cocoa. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit the edges with some Art Thicket, which is a deeper green. I think this color definitely adds a little extra richness to it. I'm going to stamp the word coffee right across that green stripe there. I'm just using, they're like a typeface font, little rubber letters, and some dark green ink. To seal this, I'm going to give it a couple of spritzes of a clear matte sealer spray. And we're done. Let's take a look. So here we go. I think this turned out really cute. And it was a good project to kind of get the feel for the medium. I'm definitely going to want to test it out, make little characters. We'll see if I can anyway. But in the meantime, it was really fun exploring a new medium and just kind of feeling my way through it. So please let me know what you thought of today's project. If you have any tips or tricks, please drop them in the comments. I'd truly appreciate it. Please be sure to head on over to Dawn's channel and check out what she's doing. She's a genius, absolutely fabulous. You're not going to want to miss her. Check out the playlist as well. We always have talented friends joining us, showing us their mad skills. So be sure to show everybody some love. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.